So what I want to do is say a little bit about the Nature of Mind project, but I want to start with someone I've been reading. I've been reading Marilynne Robinson for a while. Do you know her work? I think of Marilynne Robinson as a great novelist. I first read her novel Gilead, which I thought was wonderful, and I've read all of her novels. And then I've started reading her thought. She's a great thinker. She's a very, very deep thinker. Of course, it's interesting for me because Marilynne Robinson is also a committed Calvinist. She's very strongly a Calvinist and argues very strongly from a Calvinist point of view, which is quite unusual. But yeah, I've been reading her, and particularly this book called "What Are We Doing Here?" I thought, we'd start a project on the nature of mind by exploring Calvinist thought. But yeah, particularly this book, "What Are We Doing Here?" And that one of the points that she makes, which I find, I don't know, in a way I shouldn't need reminding of this, and Buddhism talks about this, and so many people talk about this. But as far as we know, the human mind is the most remarkable thing in the universe. I mean, of course, we've got limited experience, but the human mind is the most remarkable thing in the universe. It's the greatest treasure on earth. We don't know anything that's more remarkable than the human mind. And Marilynne Robinson, she quotes the American poet Wallace Stevens, and this very famous line from Wallace Stevens, where Stevens says, "How high that highest candle lights the dark." Yeah, how high that highest candle lights the dark. And what Stevens means by that is how much of the darkness is lit by the human mind, how high that highest candle lights the dark, how much the human mind has been able to see, I'm old enough to remember a program that used to have on in the UK called Tomorrow's World. Does anyone remember Tomorrow's World? When they'd sort of say all the things that might be invented in the future. And I remember somebody walking around in fields and said, one day you'll be able to phone someone from a field. You'll be able to just, and he had this sort of briefcase with a phone attached to it. And I remember as a young teenager thinking, well, that would be like a miracle if you could phone somebody from a field. I still remember the time when the phone rang, you didn't know who it was, So even something like that, a tiny thing like that, the phones that are now absolutely dominant in our lives, even as a teenager, that would have seemed a miracle to me. If somebody had handed me an iPhone when I was 13, it would have been a miracle. So we don't know, even horizontally, how far the mind can go. We sent a probe, haven't we, out that's going to go out of our solar system. We've just been seeing photographs, the clearest photographs we've ever had of Mercury, the planet Mercury. We've developed the CAT scan. That the human mind that candle of the human mind has lit the dark more and more and more. That the human mind, we just don't know its edges. It's remarkable when you think of it that here we are in the 21st century and we still haven't got to the limit of human ingenuity. We still haven't got to the limit of human creativity. We still don't know how much we can do. Do you remember, and some of you are old enough to remember the first moon landing? I am. I remember my father taking me, my brother and I in our dressing gowns up onto the lawn behind my house and pointing at the moon and saying, "There are men on there today." And I remember I was about 8, I think, and remembering how miraculous it seemed that we'd put a man on the moon. That's so long ago already. So horizontally speaking, as it were, we don't know how far the mind goes. We don't know how much more we can create. But of course, that's only in one way. We also don't know how deep the mind goes. So, if I was giving this talk downstairs in the London Buddhist Centre, I'd be talking about the Buddha figure that would have been behind me in the London Buddhist Centre. And that the Buddha figure is an image for how deep the mind can go. That mind also includes the potential of a new kind of consciousness, except for the word conscious is consciousness. That makes it sound too conscious. A new kind of mind, a new kind of being in the world. Yeah. So we don't know how deep the mind can go. We don't know how broad the mind can go. And so we don't know how. We still haven't got to the limit of human creativity, human ingenuity. We still don't really understand the depths of the human mind. There's still everything to discover in the human mind. And even, in a certain sense, more than that, we actually don't know what it is. After all this time, we don't know what the mind is. We can sort of see, neurons firing and so on. You can sort of see a lot about brain activity. Our first guest on Nature of Mind is Iain McGilchrist, and his great idea, and we'll see a clip at the end of my talk, his great idea about the two hemispheres of the brain. So we can see, what neurons do and so on, but nobody still understands how this is possible. And I don't mean a Zoom call, I mean how it's possible to open your eyes and be in a world, yeah? So we don't actually even know what the mind is. In philosophy, it's the big problem. How does matter become conscious? What does that mean? And one of the things we're going to be doing on this project, the Nature of Mind project, is exploring the mystery of that. And we're going to be exploring that in all sorts of ways, like we're going to be exploring people who've had near-death experiences. I'm going to be interviewing Penny Satori, who's the first English woman in England to study, one of the first women to study people with near-death experiences. We're going to be studying one of the first people in America. We'll be interviewing one of the first people in the US, Carol Bromley, who was one of the first people to study children with past life memories. What does all that say about mind? We're going to be meeting contemporary philosophers, non-materialist philosophers of mind, who suggest that mind is primary and that matter is secondary, and even Iain McGilchrist seems to be suggesting that matter, as we call it, is a kind of resistance in consciousness. Don't really know what that means, but you'll need to watch that interview with him. So yeah, we've got this mind, which is the most remarkable thing. As far as we know in the universe, there might be greater minds than ours that can create a Mozart symphony, that can invent the CAT scan, that can cure things that were once thought to be incurable. It's amazing in a way how much more health we have. If you ever read a 19th century novel, what you see is so much sickness. I was talking to a friend of mine. It wasn't that long ago historically where childbirth was very, very dangerous. Mortality in childbirth was quite very high, and many women died giving birth. You very, very rarely hear that now. We've made these incredible discoveries with the human mind, and it's too easy to forget that. Weirdly, it's so easy to forget that. What astonishing creatures we are. But of course, the issue for most of us, and certainly the issue for me, the tragedy really of the human mind is not, it's a mysterious, remarkable treasure, and we don't make enough of it. That's really, for nearly all of us, the great issue is we don't make enough of our mind. We don't realise the treasure that we've got. The tragedy of human life is not the bad we do, but the good that we don't do, really. That's the real issue, is that we don't live anywhere near of our potential. We're probably living on a tiny part of consciousness much of the time. That moment when you're scrolling through your phone and you know in the back of your mind that millions of years of evolution weren't supposed to lead up to this moment of scrolling through Instagram or whatever it is. We all get into these sort of absurd time-wasting things. And we're doing it with this kind of spacecraft of a mind that can fly to other universes. And what we're doing is we're looking at kitten videos on YouTube, and we've all got into that moment, those sort of rabbit holes. And we all sort of vaguely know that can't be the right use of mind. Again, Marilynne Robinson is sort of wonderful on this. She says, let me find something she said here. She says, the mind, that most luxuriant flowering of the highest possibilities of the material world, likes to natter and mope and trivialise itself. We let an astonishing fertility run to weeds. I was really struck by that, that the mind, that most luxuriant flowering of the highest possibilities of the material world, likes to natter and mope and trivialise itself. We let an astonishing fertility go to seed. And in a way, that's very much what this project is about, seeing if we can do a little bit in the next 6 months, not to let an astonishing fertility to go to seed. So what we're going to be doing in this project, this 6-month project, is every month we're going to be taking you through a cycle of events that I really hope you'll all join us. And 15 Buddhist centres around the world are taking part in this, from Brisbane to Sydney to London to Cambridge to Berlin to Dublin, all around the world. And many people. We've already, I think, got over 1,000 people subscribing to the project, and many more will join us as we go along. Many people that aren't involved in Buddhism at all. I mean, it's really important to emphasise that this project is for anyone who's interested in the nature of mind, and surely that is the thing to be interested in. Everything in your life is predicated by your mind. Every experience you have, or could possibly have, is mediated through your mind. So the health of your mind is the health of your life. So if you're interested in the nature of mind, we're trying to take you into that area. We're trying to, first of all, talk to people about the nature of mind. Talk to people who've really thought very deeply about it. So we're going to be talking to Iain McGilchrist, and we'll see a little bit about of him in a moment. He's a neuroscientist. He's a psychiatrist. I think he has a major idea about brain function, about the two hemispheres of the brain. So every month we'll be posting a YouTube conversation with a whole range of people, with, for instance, Paul Gilbert, who's the founder of Compassion Focused Therapy. As I've already mentioned, Carol Bowman, who's one of the first people in the US to study children with past life memories. Later in the project, we're going to be in conversation with Philip Goff, who's a philosopher of mind and a panpsychist, which I have looked up, but I've forgotten already what it means. It means that everything is conscious, I think, and so on. So every month we'll be posting a video, a YouTube conversation, which we'll be asking you to watch. And we just want to be in conversation with people who've thought about and explored the mind. We want to keep on finding people to talk to about the mind. And then, but we don't want the project just to be a kind of passive project where, you've got a cup of tea and you're watching YouTube again instead of watching kitten videos, or there's actually some very good dog videos. Instead of watching that, you're actually, watching somebody talking about the nature of consciousness. But instead of that, easily gets a bit passive. So every month we'll also be hosting a seminar, an interactive seminar. So usually, if we can possibly do it, the person who's interviewed that person, that guest, will host a seminar. So the first seminar that I'm going to be helping with this afternoon in UK time, this evening in UK time, is Iain who was the chair of the London Buddhist Centre, exploring the thought of Iain McGilchrist. And those seminars will be interactive, so there'll be a short talk, there'll be time for questions and answers, there'll be breakout groups, and so on. So the idea is to then go deeper into the thought, whether it's, what is compassion focused therapy, how do you cultivate self-esteem, for instance, whether you go from that, or whether you talk about the non-materialist philosophy of consciousness, or whether you're talking about near-death experiences. It's a chance then to explore it together, discuss it more together. But we don't even want to go, even that's still a bit passive. So what we want to do is then, after that seminar, we'll every month we'll have a week of meditation masterclasses, as we call them. So I'm going to be leading the first one, where we'll be looking at Iain McGilchrist's thought, and we'll be saying, okay, well, let's put that into practice. Let's actually practice with our mind. Yeah, that's what meditation is. Meditation is working on your mind with your mind. So every month we'll be exploring the mind directly in meditation. Yeah, and we'll do that cycle every month. Yeah, hosted conversation, seminar exploring that more deeply, and then meditation to really embody that, to try to live that out. And then we'll be culminating the whole project in a retreat at Adhisthana, the International Buddhist Centre Adhisthana will be having a sort of culminatory retreat there, which will also have a strong hybrid element live in person and on YouTube, and there'll also be online only aspects of that. So what we want is in 6 months you can really start to explore the mind, the mystery of the mind, that we're astonishing creatures. And if we're not careful, we allow, as Marilynne Robinson said, an astonishing fertility to go to seed. And we want to try and help us all make that not happen, that we actually start to make the most of our mind. Our mind is the most precious thing in the universe. Let's actually really make the most of it.